2001 Sonic Adventure 2 introduces the character of Shadow the Hedgehog, and with him his signature ability, Chaos Control, which allows the user to warp time and space. Other users who have managed to utilize Chaos Control include Sonic, Silver, Emerl, Metal Overlord, Black Doom, and the Bio Blizzard, and has been used in some of the most epic moments of the series. But how does Chaos Control work? What does it do? Lately there's been some debate and discourse among fans over exactly that, so today I'm going to clear that up using what's consistently presented in the games as my source. So, let's begin. A little background. Chaos Energy is the power generated by the 7 Chaos Emeralds and the more powerful Master Emerald, and can be harnessed by machines and powerful weapons. The emeralds themselves are virtually limitless in the capacity of energy they produce, and on the rare occasion they have been drained, there have been ways of jumpstarting and restoring them. Researching the emeralds has led to them having their material reproducible, which resulted in the creation of chaos drives used by Gun as batteries to power their robots and weapons, as well as the fake Chaos Emerald made by Tails, which are able to produce their own chaos energy, but neither are as remotely close as what a real Chaos Emerald can do, and most likely don't last forever. Not only machines can utilize chaos energy, certain living beings are capable of having a connection with chaos energy as well, and are able to both utilize and control it. The Chow are a race of small creatures that feed on chaos energy, and it can influence their form and abilities. Knuckles the Echidna comes from a long line of echidnas who spent generations influenced by the Master Emerald as its guardians, and long before then their ancient tribe used it for all sorts of rituals. As a result, Knuckles has a connection with the Master Emerald and can feel the presence of chaos energy, which allows him to locate its broken pieces. Gerald Robotnik's research to create the ultimate life form hinged heavily on understanding chaos energy so it can be used in many different ways, which includes chaos control. Project Shadow's prototype was successful in creating a living life form that could naturally produce its own chaos energy, but because the creature was out of control, it was deemed a failure, leading to the partnership with the warlord of the Black Arms, Black Doom, promising the secret of controlling chaos energy Gerald sought, resulting in the creation of Shadow the Hedgehog. Born with chaos energy already in his body, inhibited by the rings he wears, and thanks to his Black Arms DNA, holds greater control over it. So we've just covered a brief history on chaos energy and the living beings who have a natural connection to it. Each that do seem to have their own specific reason as to why, and some may remain a mystery for the foreseeable future. That being said, we now know that beings with a connection to chaos energy can utilize it to power themselves up or control it to be used as chaos abilities and techniques. Not too dissimilar from Ki in Dragon Ball or the Force in Star Wars or something like that. And in proximity to a Chaos Emerald, chaos abilities can be powered up past their initial limits, and of course, as we all know, collecting all 7 allows a user with a connection to chaos energy to unlock a transformation that reflects their hearts. Heroes like Sonic are granted a golden super form, and Hatred and Malice is granted a monstrous form like Perfect Chaos. Chaos Control can warp time and space. The origin of this ability is unknown. It appears to have been a goal of Gerald Robotnik, and Black Doom already held mastery over it. The correlation between chaos energy and the alien race the Black Arms are currently unknown, other than their DNA and his biology allows Shadow easy control over it, but it's not exclusively tied to them, as Sonic, a born Earthling, also has a connection with chaos energy and is able to copy Shadow's technique and successfully use chaos control, but seemingly with a bit of difficulty. Recently, fans have been at odds with each other and confused over if Chaos Control teleports the user or slows down time, and the answer is simple: both. In Sonic Adventure 2, which introduces both Chaos Control and Shadow, we are shown it in use up close, channeling the power of a Chaos Emerald and calling out the words Chaos Control. To the perspective of the user, time for everything nearby appears to slow to an almost standstill, allowing the user to quickly move around freely. While Sonic is moving at speeds, from his perspective, Shadow appears to be as fast, if not even faster, with Sonic quickly making the connection afterwards. Using Chaos Control to slow down time has been seen frequently with Shadow, to his assist trophy in Super Smash Bros., to a gameplay move in Shadow Generations, to just walking past Silver's slow motion punch to kick him in the back of the head, which has remained pretty consistent. Chaos Control also lets the user teleport. Shadow can instantly teleport from one spot to another within a small radius, akin to X-Men's Nightcrawler. With the limited chaos energy already in his body, Shadow does not need a Chaos Emerald to do this, which is also how he is able to use the ability Chaos Spear, an energy-based projectile attack. Teleporting with Chaos Control is great for combat and can be used in combination with a homing attack to snap to enemies through walls, lasers, and other obstacles. This technique is called Chaos Snap. When a Chaos Emerald is added to the mix, much like slowing down time, calling out Chaos Control allows Shadow to use the power of the Emerald to break past the limits of teleporting without one. and the more Chaos Emeralds there are, the greater the capabilities are, expanding the distance the user can travel as well as being able to take other living beings and objects with them. This is also showcased in Sonic Adventure 2 after Sonic and Shadow have their skirmish in Green Forest. With the limited time remaining before the island blows up, Sonic runs to find Tails and Amy to escape on the Cyclone, while Shadow runs to find Rouge and arrives in a tense moment with only seconds remaining, calling out Chaos Control, even without a Chaos Emerald in hand, and at the last possible moment manages to reach Rouge holding 3 Chaos Emeralds, and Chaos Control works just as the island explodes. Evidently, 3 emeralds was more than enough to get them off the island where they would reunite with Eggman off screen. Chaos Control is depicted the exact same way in the fan series Super Mario Bros. Z, where seconds before destruction, with 1 emerald in hand and 3 more right next to him with Sonic, Shadow is able to get all the remaining inhabitants off Yoshi's Island before it's destroyed. Yeah, that was a sentence I said. This fan series is actually what introduced me to Shadow and the Chaos Emeralds back when I was a kid before playing any Sonic games, excluding Rush, before even knowing you could collect Chaos Emeralds in the game. God, I just realized this is supposed to be Namek. Wow, how about that? Back to Sonic Adventure 2, when trapped in an escape pod hurtling towards the Earth, Sonic, as always when backed into a corner, thinks on his feet and with no other options available, in a last-ditch effort, tries to copy the Chaos Control he saw Shadow use earlier. He doesn't know how to do it, he doesn't know how it works, he certainly didn't know if it would work. He probably just thought really hard to get back on the Ark while calling out, Chaos Control! When he lands aboard the Ark in a bright blue light right next to Knuckles, who could feel the Chaos Control coming, Sonic appears a little exhausted. Unlike Shadow, using Chaos Control seemed to take quite a bit out of him, which is probably why he rarely ever uses Chaos Control afterwards. I mentioned before there's been some discourse over if Chaos Control can teleport or not, with the argument being made that Shadow doesn't actually teleport, it just seems like that because time has stopped. Well, I'd just like to clarify that is not the case. This was stirred by reactions to a Twitter thread with Ian Flynn in response to a clip from the Bumblecast where he mistakenly said it only slows down time and not teleport, in response to someone saying Shadow teleported himself and Rouge to the Ark, and that Ian disagreed they went straight to the Ark directly and that the passage of time was implied. And amazingly, most people seem to miss the part where he points out the real question that should have been asked, is Sonic escaping the capsule in space? Jazz hands. Showing that he indeed does know it can be used to teleport, and even addresses the confusion in a future Bumblecast that occasionally some things said on the stream won't always be accurate. And I just gotta say, people on Twitter, you should really leave Ian alone and stop blaming him for everything you don't like. He doesn't decide everything that does and doesn't happen in Sonic, he just writes stories and character dialogue for Sonic Team, and everything goes through an approval process and is double-checked with their new lore team to make sure things make sense, and remain consistent to the series' history, and oh, I'm so glad this happens now! You have no idea how good a place the series is in right now, and how much has changed since the days of Sonic Forces! Chaos Control is the ability, but it can be used for more than one function. It can warp time to slow it down around the user, and it can warp space to teleport the user. Space and time. And there's actually always been a distinction between the two as far back as SA2. When slowing down time, it shows a green visual effect. When teleporting across space, it's always shown a blue visual effect, and for the most part, that's remained consistent to this day, even to Shadow Generations. There are a few exceptions where slowing down time instead of using a green effect just uses a bright flash of light or a negative filter instead, and sometimes yellow with a super form. And in Shadow the Hedgehog 2005, Chaos Control is used when you fill your blue hero gauge, as opposed to the red evil gauge that lets you use Chaos Blast. Depending on which gauge is filled, Shadow will glow the color of the respective gauge. When using Chaos Control in this game, I'm not entirely sure how to interpret what's happening as Shadow flies across the air at great speeds along a set path. I mean, I guess this is him teleporting across long distances in a way that can be conveyed better to the player instead of being instantaneous. Maybe this is Shadow's perspective when he's finding a place to teleport to. I don't know, my guess is as good as yours. When in a boss battle without a set path, using Chaos Control slows time instead. Shadow still glows blue instead of green, but I'm just gonna chalk it up to being attached to the same in-game mechanic. I know that sounds a little unsatisfying, but sometimes details like this go underlooked in game development. I was confused in Shadow Generations why he glows yellow when he's ready to use Chaos Control, until I realized it's because to use Chaos Control he has the yellow emerald with him. When it comes to using Chaos Control in gameplay, they always make sure to be consistent to the Chaos Emerald rule. In Shadow Generations, he already had the yellow Chaos Emerald prior to the story starting and has it on him during the entire story. But what I don't understand is why Shadow tried to trick Sonic into taking the fake emerald when we already know you can use Chaos Control with a fake. In Sonic Heroes, Shadow always has the green Chaos Emerald on him so he can use Chaos Control in Team Dark's team attack. In Shadow the Hedgehog, early in the first level you find a Chaos Emerald before Shadow has a chance to fill his hero gauge. Now before I mentioned that the more Chaos Emeralds the user has, the greater the capabilities of Chaos Control is. In Shadow the Hedgehog, with all 7 emeralds, both Black Doom and Super Shadow are able to warp Doom's ship, the Black Comet, between Earth and its orbit. But that's nothing in comparison to the true potential of what Chaos Control is capable of, with 2 users. In Sonic Adventure 2's ending, the entire Space Colony arc is on a collision course with Earth and is already close to approaching Earth's atmosphere. With the full power of all 7 Chaos Emeralds shared between both Super Sonic and Super Shadow, who has removed his inhibitor rings and using up all the Chaos energy he can generate, both Hedgehogs use a combined Chaos Control so powerful it enveloped the entire arc with everybody on board, returning the arc to its place safe in orbit, which is by far one of the highest feats of Chaos Control. But as a result, Shadow, drained of all his energy and exhausted, passed out, falling to the earth. But that's when 2 users use a combined Chaos Control together. What happens when 2 users use 2 separate Chaos Controls against each other? In Sonic 06, we are shown that when 2 Chaos Controls are used at the same time, with the emeralds in close proximity to each other, instead of warping the fabric of space-time, it tears that fabric right open, creating a rift that can be used to travel through time. Shadow makes a theory on creating a space-time rift that uses a lot of energy after witnessing Mephiles' ability to do so, and noting that it feels similar to Chaos Control. Later in the game when fighting, Shadow and Silver create one by accident after Shadow uses Chaos Control to slow time against Silver, who tries to do it himself using his own Chaos Emerald. This is an incredibly broken technique that is used 3 times in this game's messy time travel story. Could you imagine if the characters could just do this in the series whenever? Thankfully, in Sonic 06's ending, the events of the game's story were wiped from the timeline, and neither Sonic, Shadow, or Silver have any knowledge of being able to use Chaos Control in this unintended way, which is probably for the best. Chaos Control seemingly can also ignore the boundaries between dimensions, as in Sonic Rivals 2, when Shadow and Metal Sonic are trapped in the Chaotic Inferno dimension with a Chaos Emerald. Why are you hiding that in there, Metal? You look terrible. Shadow is able to use Chaos Control to warp through the dimension to return home. The Chaos Emerald's counterparts, the Soul Emeralds from Blaze's dimension, allowed Blaze to do a similar thing, to travel back and forth between her home and Sonic's world. In Sonic Prime, as Sonic shattered the Paradox Prism, Shadow was excluded from its effects as he was using Chaos Control at the same time, and was the only one from Sonic's world to stay preserved as he was and unaffected by the creation of the Shadowverse. The Bio-Lizard is a fascinating case, as it's a wild, violent, unintelligent beast, and it's capable of using Chaos Control, and it doesn't even need an emerald to do it. It has a special artificial organ that allows it to initiate Chaos Control, which is powered by the numerous Chaos Drives in its external engine built into its life support system. I should probably make a dedicated video to the Bio-Lizard and its lore, because this thing is fascinating. Jeez, Metal Overlord. What a mess of a character. After copying the data from Shadow and Chaos through Chocola, Chow, and Froggy, Neo Metal Sonic is able to transform into Metal Overlord and gains the ability to use Chaos Control. In Shadow Generations, it's shown that when Chaos Control is used against him, he can resist its effects by using it himself. You ever wonder how Metal Overlord and Neo Metal Sonic are able to do something as broken as copy the data of other characters to use their abilities? Well, that's exactly what a Merle does. And Eggman discards a Merle at the beginning of Sonic Battle, which takes place immediately after Sonic Heroes. I think you can put 2 and 2 together. A Merle connects everything! That's all on Chaos Control today. I hope you found this video informative and that I've clarified anything you may have found confusing. So, until next time, Chaos Control!